May God be with you. A reading from the Holy Gospel according to John. Do not let your hearts be troubled. You have faith in God, have faith in me as well. In God's house, there are many dwelling places. Otherwise, how could I have told you that I was going to prepare a place for you? I am indeed going to prepare a place for you. And then I will come back to take you with me, that where I am, there you may be as well. You know the way that leads to where I am going. Thomas replied, but we do not know where you are going. How can we know the way? Jesus told him, I myself am the way, I am the truth, I am the life. No one comes to Abba God but through me. If you really knew me, you would know Abba God also. From this point on, you know Abba God, and you know you have seen God. Rabbi, Philip said, show us Abba God, and it will be enough for us. Whenever he has seen me, he has seen Abba God. How can you say, show us Abba? Do you not believe that I am in Abba God and God is in me? The words I speak are not spoken of myself. It is Abba, God, living in me, who is accomplishing the works of God. Believe me that I am in God and God is in me. Or else believe because of the works I do. The truth of the matter is, anyone who has faith in me will do the works I do, and greater works besides. Why? Because I go to Abba God. The good news of salvation. Are you afraid of getting lost? That's the question I have for you. Came to me as I was thinking about these scriptures this weekend. Are you afraid of getting lost? You know, it's kind of hard to imagine today, isn't it? Getting lost. We have our iPhones, our smartphones, our GPS, Google Maps. It's really kind of hard to even think that we could possibly get lost today, in today's world, with all the technology and all things we have. I'm of that era where I used to carry a map, a street map in the car with me so I wouldn't get lost. Now it's so simple. 2,000 years ago, it might have been a bigger deal to get lost, and getting lost might have been something that could have happened rather easily. I get what Thomas is saying in the gospel today when Jesus is saying, hey, look, I'm going ahead of you. I'm preparing a place. There are a lot of rooms in my Father's house. I'm going on ahead. You'll be okay. Do not let your hearts be troubled. Thomas says, well, we don't know where you're going. How on earth are we going to find you? Where are you going to go? We're going to get lost. He's afraid of getting lost. 2,000 years ago makes a little bit of sense, perhaps. A wrong turn, a wrong path going from village to village. You could have got lost. And it might have been dangerous, right? So Thomas is afraid of getting lost. He's like, where are you going? We need to know so that we can find you. So that we can find you. I like that idea, right? Because isn't on the one level, Thomas doesn't want to get lost in the wilderness or anything, but on a spiritual level, isn't that kind of what we're all about? We want to find God. We want to find love. We want to find relationships of love and communities of love, right? That's kind of what we do. That's kind of what church and religion does, I think. Which reminded me of a story about a young boy who experienced the ocean for the very first time. The very first time he saw the ocean, and he was just blown away by it. He loved it so much. He swam in it and played in it all day. He built sand castles. He just ran around up and down and rode the waves up and down. He was having a great time. He was so moved by that experience of the ocean that he wanted it to capture it and bring it back to school with him so that his classmates would know what he experienced. So he got a jar. He filled it with ocean water. He put the lid on, went back to school. He stood up in front of his classmate and he says, look, here's the ocean. And he's right, and he's wrong, right? That jar does contain ocean in it, but the ocean's way bigger than any jar could possibly contain, right? That jar, it can't possibly contain all the mysteries and magic and wonder of the ocean. And isn't that kind of what religion does? Like we all have our own jars of ocean water, don't we? You know, the Islamic tradition, they have a very solid jar filled with ocean water, and then the Jews, they have a really big jar, and some people have little small jars, and Catholics, we have a big jar, we got a nice jar, and then all these other folks have different jars, and we're all looking for the God, right? The God in our lives, the God of the universe. But none of us can contain all there is to know about God. None of us can contain all the grace that God wants to give us. It would be crazy to think that we could contain the ocean in a jar. So with all these jars of water, where are we going to find God? How are we not going to get lost? Well, I have the answer. I wouldn't ask these questions if I didn't have something to tell you. The answer is simple. If we don't want to get lost, we just simply have to grow our spiritual life. That's it. Grow your spiritual life. I know it sounds really, really simple, but I believe that that's at the heart of not only our tradition, but all the other jars of ocean water, right? They all carry that same idea, that same concept of growing your spiritual life. Some of you may be familiar with Bill Wilson, the author of Alcoholics Anonymous. He started Alcoholics Anonymous, and he wrote the first 164 pages in the big book of AA. In there, he talks about relapse one time. And when he's talking about relapse, he tells this guy's story about how he relapsed. And he says this, all went well for a while, but he failed to expand his spiritual life. He failed to enlarge his spiritual life. Bill Wilson, and many of you would probably know, or some of you would know, that the 12 steps is often considered to be a spiritual program, right? It's not just a program of recovery, but a spiritual program as well. Failure to enlarge your spiritual life is directly connected with relapsing and not succeeding in staying sober. That's Bill Wilson. The Islamic tradition equates expanding your spiritual life with nearness to God. Those two phrases are the same thing, they're interchangeable in the Islamic tradition. Nearness to God and expanding and growing your spiritual life. In the Jewish tradition, one of the biggest holy days that they have is Yom Kippur, which celebrates renewal and spiritual growth. You see the spiritual growth ideas across all these different ocean jars. And it's reflected in the readings today. The first reading we heard today talks about the disciples gathering together and understanding that they've got to expand this community. They have to grow the community in order to do all that they need to do. So they elect 7 new members to grow the community. They're expanding, they're growing their spiritual lives. And in the gospel today, biblical scholars often talk about the gospel today as the final discourse, Jesus' final message to his disciples. And in there, he's basically saying to them, look, guys, I'm leaving now. I'm going to where my Father is. I'm going to Abba's house. You guys are staying here, and you need to grow. You need to expand. You need to grow your spiritual lives and become the disciples I have called you to be. In the readings today, it's all about growing our spiritual lives. I want to say 2 quick things about your spiritual life and growing your spiritual life. One is there's two different aspects. There's 2 principles that are contained in that. And one is this individual relationship I have with God, right? It's me and God. But the other is me and the community, which is what churches are and what fellowships are, right? It's about me and the community. So I was going to give you like 5 different ways to expand or grow your spiritual life or something like that. But I just want to leave you with a couple of thoughts. When we're talking about growing our spiritual lives, we have to remember that it's not only just me and God. Me and God growing together and me meditating and praying and reflecting on scripture. It's not just about me and God, but I need to take that awareness of God in me and bring it to the awareness of God in others. And that's the communal aspect. It's individual and it's communal. So when I grow my spiritual life, I need to ask myself, how am I growing my community? How am I growing my relationships with members of my community? And am I recognizing the presence of God in every man, woman, and child that I meet? That's what growing our spiritual life is about. Those 2 elements. Now, again, I was going to give you those list of 5 things to grow your spiritual life. I'm going to spare you that because you know how to do this, right? You know how to grow your spiritual life. You guys have been around for a while. You've done this. We have done this. But let me ask you this. Is your spiritual life today the same as it was a year ago? And if you say yes, then you have to look for ways to expand and to grow your spiritual life. And we need to ask that about this church community. Is this church community today the same as it was a year ago? And if we say yes, we have to look for ways to expand our church community as well. The key to not getting lost and to finding God is to grow our spiritual life. And we do that by loving ourselves and recognizing the presence of God in us, and loving one another and recognizing the presence of God in each other.